Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. You're all introverts. And you're insecure. And you have self-esteem issues. All of the above and everybody in this room. 98% of the high-performance people on the planet are introverts. 98. 2% are extroverts. Of the 2% that are extroverts, only 10% of the 2%, or 0.2%, are alpha fucking males like me. So they're all weenies like you. Several of you laugh in here. It's a coping mechanism. It's just like stuttering. It's no different than stuttering. You can get away with a little more on Zoom and Skype fucking that. Don't laugh or smile. It's a sign of weakness. I'm going to say it again. Don't laugh or smile. It's a sign of weakness. And most of the high-performance people on that board, and remember, that's only about 20% of, because the other 80% don't want their face shown. But of that board, they're all introverts except 3, and there's arguably only one other alpha male on the board. That doesn't mean you can't have the same communication skills I do, but you equate communication skills with alpha male because I'm not afraid to make mistakes, which I make a lot of, i.e. Donald Trump is a classic example of that. A lot of the shit he said, turned out to be not true. Now, I have my own fact check system in my staff, which is behind the camera right now. And I'll even when I don't ask her to fact check, she'll, well, actually, this isn't true, Mr. Peña. And so almost everything I say that's going on the YouTube or on my website or on social media is absolutely 100% accurate. Because that shit is going to be there forever. So I have her fact check it. You heard her say when she's not ruthless, but she's strong. But being Parisian, they're ball busters. The Parisians are ball busters. The French are ball busters in general. The Parisians are ball busters specifically. And she's a Parisian. And, a pushy broad. Now, I've said this before. Good-looking gals have 10 times easier doing this. 10 times. And that's without fucking anybody. If they fuck them like I hope they do, I don't mean take advantage, I mean fuck them like in bed. Suck their dicks and shit like that. I mean, this is worse than a license to steal. It's worse. Unfortunately, we don't have any gals in the audience. Normally we have 2, sometimes 4. And normally at least half of the girls are pretty good looking. Sometimes we get some real fucking really good looking gals. But even if you're an average gal, this is easier for you. Because where they want to be treated fairly, they want the same money, all that shit they're complaining about, they don't mind. And we asked all the gals that come through, you don't mind having it easier because you're a woman, do you? No. You don't mind because you're a good-looking bitch with big tits. Now, what does that mean? Yeah. Blondes do have more fun. Right, Sally? And that's just the way it is. And if anybody over 20 in this room, well, one isn't over 20, but I'm telling the 18-year-old that that's the way it is. Now, they don't want that taken away from them. They don't mind having an advantage. Comments about Margot. Yes, sir.
When she was talking about the daily schedule, she said that she wakes up at 6 o'clock and works nonstop until 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Correct. Then she eats a little.
But that's not really high performance. That's 8 hours. I mean.
Yeah. Well, first of all, true Europeans don't eat their lunch. Their biggest meal is like 2 to 4. I mean, real. You know, Italy, Spain, Portugal, France. The Germans don't adhere to that too much. Or Germanic countries, I should say, don't adhere to that. But yeah, she works 8 hours, and then she goes to the gym. She actually was a boxer before, and we had just coincidentally, I paired her up with another gal. Because they were both tall, not because I knew that they had any pugilistic expertise, but they put on a good show. 2 girls banged it out pretty good. And I wish we had boxing again, but we don't. But in the guys, it's only one round we go. And I want to go 5-minute rounds like MMA. Well, we haven't had anybody come through this program that's in good enough shape to go 1 5-minute round, let alone 5. You know, it's talk's cheap and you get in there, and we've had some, but every single seminar, somebody got seriously hurt. We didn't put that on YouTube though. Seriously hurt. Because, you know, normally when you have a 2 or 3-minute round, you go hell bent for leather, you know. And we had one guy knocked unconscious. Lost sight in both eyes because the retina, you know, he got hit, boom, 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 like this by. We've had guys, some serious shit happen, broken bones, you know, dislocated shoulders. But we didn't share that with you YouTubers. And I used to be the referee in the beginning, but then I almost got knocked out of the fucking ring. And Sally says, "That's it. We got to get a real professional referee." And so the last 3/4 of the fights, we had a professional referee who kept it clean. But Margot is just, and she said, funny enough, the scripts work. I don't think that's so fucking funny myself, as yet, but that's very French. That's especially very Parisian. I wouldn't give you fucking shit if it didn't work. Comments about, oh, yes, sir.
It seemed to me that her real turning point was an instance where she was really frustrated and talked to a law firm or something like that and just kind of had a...
No, she had 10 or 12 no's on cold calls. And she said, even though I stepped down and then I stepped back in, I think she said she made 50, 60 cold calls that day. And 10 or 12 of them, first 10 or 12 were no, which is not unusual. But they weren't no from a principal. They were no from, they left messages. Everybody else has their own breaking point. There's not too many, you heard what I played the first time when I mentioned the leading Mercedes salesman here in Britain said, and I played it, I never heard so many people whine and ask the same question, does it really come down to cold calls? And it's what breaks most of the kids. And for those of you that laugh and think that that's not, we'll see. Because if you adhere to the weekly reports you're going to get for yourself, not for me, and you answer them honestly, because you're only fooling you're not fooling me, because I don't read them. There's not a 300 cold caller in this room a day. There's not a 200 cold caller in this room a day. There's not a 100 cold caller in this room a day. We might, as they say in Oklahoma, you could have maybe a 50 cold caller in the room. 50. Real live. You heard Gerard, he said he made 20 cold calls in a day. Now he's running a business, cut him some slack. We've had polished salesmen, their wives tell me, Bob looked at the phone for 45 minutes without touching it until I said, what are you, a cunt like Dan says? Pick up the fucking phone. This is a polished salesman. If it were as easy as it sounds, we'd have everybody that comes to the seminar would be a billionaire. So someplace there's a disconnect, right, Murph? Someplace there's a disconnect. And the disconnect is not in the system. It's you. And it's you between your ears. It's like Goliath and who did Goliath fight? David. David is that okay? You're the David. He's the little guy, right? Yeah. You're the David, and then there's the Goliath. And you think, fuck, you'd be doing a spreadsheet. Now, he's 7 times bigger than I am. Probably the only, and he's got armor over his balls, so it's not like I can't get my foot up there to kick him. You do all the spreadsheets. And then you decide to walk away after he spit on your wife. Now, where I come from is just the opposite. I look around, no bricks, no. I tell the story, this is a true story. Muhammad Ali fought Sonny Liston. Most of you weren't born, okay? Sonny Liston was a bad motherfucker, okay? And we went to a drive-in theater, the Van Nuys drive-in theater in Van Nuys, where a big screen, a bunch of cars are parked, right? And he fucking knocks out Sonny Liston. And we're all drunked up, drinking in the car. I mean, it's like a good old time. And as we're pulling the cars out, now there's 800 cars trying to get out of 3 driveways. And a car hit our front bumper. And so, and I was always the first to jump out of the car. I jumped out of the car, and, hey, you cocksuckers! And they knew what cocksucker meant, unlike the 13-year-old. And they sped away. And we chased them, just like in the movies, It was a car chase from Van Nuys to Mulholland Drive, for those, okay, where the big Hollywood sign is. And every time we'd get up close to them, yeah! And finally, we're on Mulholland Drive, which wasn't paved in those days, 1965 or whenever it was. And their car gets stuck on a rock. And so the tires are spinning, but the car's not moving. 5 of us in our car, 6 of them in their car. I'm the first to pile out of the car, as I always was. And the first guy that gets out of the car is 6'8", 275 pounds, and my heart dropped to my stomach. Didn't have time to do a spreadsheet. But the one thing I learned from my neighborhood is the best defense is a motherfucking offense. And so I hit him as hard as I fucking could in the jaw. And by the grace of God, he twisted his ankle on a rock and fell down a fucking cliff. Now I'm thinking, Sugar Ray Leonard wasn't around then, but I was ready. Boom, 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 boom. Now, I was tough, but I wouldn't have normally picked a fight with a guy that outweighed me by 100 pounds. And so I'm dancing around telling the guy, you get out of this car, I'm going to do the same to you, you cocksuckers. I'm going to beat you to death with these hands. And all of a sudden, I look over my shoulder, and it's the guy. And he's crawling up like this. He had dislocated his shoulder. Shoulder's down here. But he was still willing to fight. Fuck. And he came up and he said, he called me sir. Sir, I was just going to apologize. Now I felt like this. But I'm still. Now, 5 months later, I'm at a USC Oklahoma football game, telling the exact same story. And a big meat hook hand was put on my shoulder. And I turn around, and it's him. But then I saw his arm was in a cast by the grace of Allah. And he said, did you tell him that I was coming to apologize? Made me feel again that. No, I didn't get to that part of the story yet. And he said, I should be down there in that football game. And he was the starting left end for USC. But you guys spreadsheet it, wouldn't you? Or run. And all my guys, nobody got out of the car. But they didn't get out of their car either. That's human nature. I'm going to show you a slide tomorrow. Survey was done. 1,500 or 1,700 people in the United States and Europe. 75%, and they see an old lady getting beat up. 75% of the people would take a picture with their iPhone. Only 25% would try to help the old lady. That's where we are. So when I say we're through, kids, we're fucking through. Now, in my neighborhood, 105% of the guys that jump on the guys, even if they wind up being dead. You say something bad about somebody's mom, I mean, no matter what, those are the fighting words. And I pick up a brick or a fucking pipe or something. And as I got older, if I can't beat you to death, I can hire somebody, sure as shit, that can beat you to death. And that's why it's so easy, because nobody's going to fight you. I mean, financially. Nobody. You will find not one person. And the Dutch are real cunts. I mean, really soft. The Belgium, and you're going to hear a guy from Belgian Waffles, yeah, Belgium, who's fucking the Dutch for practice right now. You're going to hear him. And that's where we are. There's nothing wrong, morally, ethically, legally, taking advantage of the situation. But you got to man up to do it. You got to man up to pull the trigger. And if you don't, then, as I said in the first few minutes of the seminar, you can never say with your hand on your heart, I didn't know how. You may decide not to do it. That's your prerogative. You know, it's a free country, free world in most of the world, not certain parts of the world, not so free. But you know, if you decide not to do it, you know, Allah be with you. Any questions about Margot? Yes, sir.
Could you please explain the success fee model for lawyers? I didn't quite get that.
Well, that's because we haven't talked about it yet. But when we talk about it, used to be called success fee, okay? Then it was called alternative fee methodology. Now, in the 21st century, because the cunts have to use a different language, or it's called delay fee. But basically what it is I'm your lawyer, and the first deal you try is this guy, and it fails. So the fees that I accrued working on your deal with a failed deal are pushed to the next deal. So the second deal is this guy. And unfortunately, it also doesn't come to fruition. So then the fees for the first and the second deal are pushed to the third deal. And then normally the accountants and lawyers won't push them more than 3 deals. But in recent years, we have a lot of kids that they don't get the deal done till the second or third deal. That's delayed fees. And all the big accounting firms and we have scripts for this and we'll go through it. And all the big accounting firms and all the big law firms do it. And they have been doing it for decades. But in the infamous words of Bruce the Whipple, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I use the example, you know, much to the chagrin of our daughter. Back when I was single, living in New York, there used to be a place called the Library. It was the hottest meat market to get laid in New York City, on Manhattan. If you couldn't get laid there, it's because you didn't have a dick. And they had 100 bar stools. And people would stand in between the bar stools. You know how you at a bar, kids still go to bars, right? Okay, you stand in between them so that there'd be 2 seats like this and there'd be 2 or 3 people standing in between them. I know you haven't, Murph, but believe me. So I'd stand at one end of the bar, and every girl, I'd move down, I have a drink in my hand, and, you know, do you want to fuck? Do you want to fuck? Do you want to fuck? Do you want? I never got to the end of the bar without getting fucked. Never. Not even one time. I got spit on, kicked, you name it, drinks thrown in my face. It's a numbers game, just like QLA. Now, when I ask this question, when I go to University of Edinburgh, Oxford, I didn't ask the question to the Naval Academy, but anyway, I did ask the girls, why are you called midshipmen? And they looked up and said, would you like to ask the commandant the same question, Mr. Peña? Well, tradition, they tell us why the gals are called midshipmen. But other than that school, I didn't ask the girls, you know, when was the last time you had a good fuck? When the girls just go, they go like this. When I used to teach Nairoda, Erasmus, and some of the Dutch schools, and really pretty girls, goddamn, they all seem to have blonde hair with a ponytail and bouncing tits. I mean, I can just vision, you know. Okay, YouTube.